Good evening. 9 years ago, I decided that I wanted to focus on impact and that I wanted to live in the mountains, at least seasonally. I started Learn Capital with my partner, Rob Hutter. Today, we have over 75 companies around the world focused on education technology. We're the largest focused fund in the space. And at the same time, I discovered a hidden gem, literally between the towns of Eden and Paradise. After 3 years of bliss, when my friends would visit, I would tell them they had to say on Facebook that they were 90 miles from here. I found out that sadly, that the mountain was for sale and going to go into foreclosure and was going to sadly be overdeveloped, which is a common American story. A few months after that, I was invited to Summit and their flagship event, Summit at Sea. Summit is a community of artists, entrepreneurs, researchers, scientists. It's anything from Fortune 500 CEOs to starving artists to anything in between. I went for business reasons, and it was productive. I ended up finding 3 companies that we invested in, and I also met Sir Ronald Cohen of social finance, who, when he retired, was tapped by the Queen of England to focus on social ills, and he came up with the social bond, or the Pay for Success movement, which has profound implications for our Learn Capital portfolio. Summit at Sea was a real eye-opener to me. The people there were incredible. The mentality of removing barriers and limitations we put on ourselves and thinking big, making no small plans, as they say, really drew me in. It was intoxicating. By the end of it, I had come up with my own big, hairy, crazy idea. I went to Malibu shortly after the boat to meet the founders of Summit, and my half-an-hour coffee extended into an 8-hour meeting. 72 hours later, we were standing at the top of Powder Mountain, the largest ski resort in the United States, my secret spot, and said, let's buy it. The idea was that we could take the Summit community and give it a permanent home at 8,600 feet, and in doing so, save it from overdevelopment. When I say overdevelopment, this is the typical formula that you see in ski resorts, particularly of Powder Mountain size, if they go into true development. You see mega crowds, you see mega homes, and you see materialism. Instead, what we wanted was something like this, or this, or this, or this, or this, or this, or this. All images taken at Powder Mountain. So design intentional community, it starts really with a vision and with values. The vision we had was, could we make a place that embodied the ethos of Summit, where people could live, work, live and play, and learn with a focus on innovation, creativity, and impact, and where they had values, including a focus on intentional design, community, and lifestyle, things like sustainable design, like farm-to-table dining, like wellness, people who wanted to engage the world through impact or innovation or creativity. They didn't have to be an innovator inventing something or an artist, but they had to appreciate those things or support those things. And of course, a humility and a desire for lifelong learning. We compared those values to the Maslow's hierarchy of needs and realized that they met them broadly. In fact, what we were inspired by was the opportunity to elevate people to the highest part of the pyramid into self-actualization. I went with the Summit founders to Switzerland, where I'd lived when I went to high school, and showed them some of the towns that inspired me in Wengen and Mern in Switzerland. We also met the founders of Serenbe and their urban planner, Dr. Phil Taub of Texas A&M, who, in addition to being a sacred geometrist, I don't know exactly how one becomes one, is a professor of urban planning. So Dr. Phil worked with the owners of Serenbe, who saw that outside of Atlanta, you had seen this massive deforestation and just repetitive McMansions. And they said, why don't we do new urbanism here? Why don't we do an urban village in this forest and model it after English countryside, which is the horseshoe shape where the commercial area is at the top of the horseshoe, and then surround it by organic farms and save it from being just yet another suburbia. And they did it, and it was inspiring. And we hired Dr. Phil to work with us. And he walked the land for 3 days, and he said, you could do an Italian hilltop city up at the ridge area. It would be incredible, but it would also have a masculine energy. And on his 3rd day, he found the village that we now have, and he said, I found this incredible saddle intersecting 3 bulls with an incredible feminine energy. He said, guys, if you can get feminine energy, you go for it. So that's where we put the village. And overall, our town is about 14 acres, about 40 acres broadly, which is a small fraction of the 10,000 acres that we own. The scale of the town is walkable, and that was our focus. So similar to the Swiss villages that we encountered, and also the historic mining towns of the 1800s. So if you look at the center of Telluride and go out, those are 1,500 feet bands at the widest range. And that's the same that we have in our village. So now we decided what we want to do, what kind of values we want this place to have. How do you actually buy a town? We didn't have the money, but we thought we could crowdsource from this summit community. And so we hosted over 2,000 people over 15 weekends for about a year and a half so they could experience this magical place. And sure enough, we closed the purchase of Powder Mountain in April of 2013. 2 months later, we hosted the summit flagship event at Powder Mountain. We had 600 glamour camping tents built and spread across the mountain, 3 restaurants, stages, and set up a 3.5-day event that was truly, truly inspirational. You can see some of the inspiration here. This long table dinner here at the end was a 1/4 mile long with no breaks, and we did a 3-course meal there. It was incredible. So this is Dr. Phil's village at Powder Mountain in the summertime. You can see the horseshoe, again, modeled after an English countryside town. There's the fall, and there's the winter. In order to close, we had to have the support of Weber County and the state of Utah. Quite frankly, we wouldn't have been able to pull this off in any other state. We were able to put in roads, water, sewer, all the traditional infrastructure required to get 6 miles out to that village site. We also added over 1,000 acres of skiing, which it just so turns out is the largest expansion in U.S. history of a ski resort. And we added 2 new lifts as part of that. It was a good moment. On a personal note, this is a photo I took skiing. Those 3 lines are my lines, and it took until 1 o'clock on Saturday for someone to find my lines. That's the kind of experience that you have at Powder Mountain, and we wanted to preserve that magical skiing experience. And so we did something unprecedented in the ski industry. We put a cap of 2,000 skiers per day and also limited season passes just above natural demand so that we could preserve that magical experience long term. With help from the Walton Foundation, we put in the cycling trail. We have 24 miles as of today, another 20 that go in this year, and ultimately 80 miles. We think we can be IMBA rated, the second resort in the country to be so, and have the most spectacular trails in the country. Our trails are infused with art. That's a 50-foot steel paper airplane there that you bank the turn on. And incredible vistas given the inverted topography of Powder Mountain, which has upper elevation integrated plateaus and saddles. We wanted our design guidelines to be in balance with nature. We didn't want the homes being the domineering force. You see these massive homes, as you saw in my earlier slide, of 20, 30,000 square foot homes, basically domineering hillsides. And so we limited homes to 4,500 square feet above ground. People thought we were crazy. That's only 1,000 square feet above the guest house at the Colony, which is a mega home development in Deer Valley, Park City area. We also wanted organic modernism as our architectural vernacular. We also embraced small, tiny home movement, including cabins. We wanted sustainability and regenerative technologies to be utilized, and we partnered with Regen Villages, a Stanford University spinoff that also won the Singularity Grand Challenge Award. They do completely off-grid communities that produce organic food, water, reuse their own waste at a neighborhood scale. So the output of your sewage effluent ends up producing organic food. This is images of the facility they're going to be building outside of Amsterdam. And I'm happy to say that Regen isn't just going to be working with us at Powder Mountain, they're moving to Powder Mountain. And we'll be working with Stanford as well, who's partnered with Regen. We're also creating a commercial innovation zone. So we're in the process on this. We've got University of Utah's already executed an MOU, and we're working on Weber State and Utah State. We think we'll have them on board shortly. But the idea is to get the Utah legislature to give us the legislative exceptions we need with university oversight to pioneer and deploy next generation technologies on a scale unprecedented given it's the largest ski resort in the country. And so if we can create this commercial innovation zone, we think we can attract the cluster of technology companies that want to service it and effectively create a global tech cluster around sustainable and regenerative technologies. We have Regen already. SimC is a European company that wants to do its US headquarters here, and Blockable wants to open a location here. So we're very excited about that. We're also reimagining Main Street. As I showed earlier, a Prada store would be our definition of failure. Instead, we want intentional brands, meaningful brands that mean something and that drive impact. We want inclusion and diversity in the town core and not push those things out like affordable housing out into the extremity or towns farther away. One of the ways we do that is through micro units on our Main Street. These buildings go up this summer and include micro units so we can accommodate artists and researchers and documentarians, people focused on social impact. Our Main Street programs and includes things like Next Gen Montessori, a recording studio, education labs, peak performance, high-tech medical diagnostics, Olympic training. We already have the Australian Olympic team training with us. A maker's lab, co-working and accelerators. Educationally, we'll have everything from labs all the way to courses and immersives or boot camps, all the way to graduate programs. We're in discussions with Singularity University about doing a full-scale Singularity campus at Summit Powder Mountain. The Summit Institute is our nonprofit arm focused on taking experts in a given field and combining them with the Summit community and others to drive creative solutions to some of the world's pressing problems. We also support an artist residency program that we're in our third year. We should be launching our Scholars in Residence program soon. This is some of the art, again, including Simon Beck from London, who's come out multiple years now to do this amazing landscape work. This is our amazing facilities that we do our convening in, the Summit Institute Sky Lodge. The Sky Lodge is actually where I stood with the Summit founders when we decided that we were going to try to buy Powder Mountain. And finally, the Summit Institute has labs where we bring together these experts and work on these topics. We've done now 3 labs on social bonds, going back to meeting Sir Ronald Cohen, the inventor of the category, 2 with the Sorensen Center here in Utah and the White House, and 1 with my firm Learn Capital and Bridge International. And next to their photo is the education minister of Liberia, where we explored transforming that country, which has a 60% teacher absenteeism and has been devastated by the war. 24,000 people applied for college. None of them passed the test. So we're looking to run a charter school program across the country and ideated on that and look to raise a $50 million social bond at Powder Mountain. It's amazing to think it's been 4.5 years and this place that used to be my refuge in largely isolation now has hosted prime ministers and others, and we've worked through some pressing problems. I think we can have a really interesting impact on the world. And so my challenge to you is, think of that secret spot you have, that amazing piece of nature, that playground. Find it and save it. Save your mountain. Thank you.